Mitch Marner is officially a Vegas Golden Knight as Brad Treliving begins to reshape the roster. Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Leafs. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Maple Leafs writers Terry Koshan and Lance Hornby. And guys, the Maple Leafs not particularly busy on the first day of free agency, but still a lot of things happening around them. And of course, the big one, Mitch Marner, is now a Vegas Golden Knight going there in the sign and trade that brings Nick Roy to Toronto. We'll get to Roy in a moment, but I guess, Terry, we can finally close the book on the Marner era. What did you make of his comments about his time in Toronto to the Vegas media?
Well, I think it really runs in line with everything else that, or any other time we see a high level athlete, a big name athlete, leave a city that he was, what would I say, comfortable in? Maybe not at the end, of course, but was his city. What if we see them leave, and this is the types of things that they say, given his Instagram goodbye yesterday, and wishing, of course, that it all could. I'm paraphrasing. Wishing, of course, that it all could have worked out better, and didn't achieve the goals, and winning the Stanley Cup, a disappointment, and all that. It was par for the course. It was heartfelt, I think, but also, I don't think you would have expected anything more or less out of Marner in his departure. And then the news conference last night in Vegas, that's just more about really getting adjusted to that city there and everything. And Lance and I watched that together, and it's just, we'll probably agree that it is still bizarre and will be for a while. Well, it was right away to see him put on that mustard colored sweater and the 93 that he wore in London. But yeah, the book is closed on Mitch Marner now, and you can say, oh well, let's see how Nick Roy turns out, but no, it's done. And to quote Brad Treliving, we now move forward.
Well, it was pretty stark. I mean, nobody expected Marner's equipment to be in the room yesterday, but you walk in, and Terry and I have made that walk, and all the media people and everyone for 9 years. That stuff has been in the center of the locker, so that when the room opened yesterday, not to see it was quite a stark change. As for his comments, I think at the very end he kind of dropped his guard a little bit when he said, "I didn't think this day would ever come," and I think now it's incumbent upon him to move ahead. Certainly, it's if people thought in around Toronto that he had some growing up to do, he's going to grow up in a hurry now in Vegas, where there's now he's a father. There'll be a different kind of pressure on him, certainly. And wow, when Vegas starts the playoffs, it's going to be all eyes on Mitch, certainly. But could have turned out much different. To Terry's point, this was a guy who was top five in scoring and more points than Austin Matthews. Even Matthews, I'm sure will catch up, but just a disappointing ending, considering how many kids have grown up in Toronto wanting to be a star in the Maple Leafs and make a difference, and it was all in his hands, and just for many reasons, not all down to him, it went south. So that's too bad, but. Moving on now, I have to see who replaces him, how the Leafs, how they get back that 100 points that they're going to be missing, and how they look in playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, of course, that Brad Treliving has here, trying to recoup, like you said, some of those points that Mitch Marner is now leaving. And Nick Roy, the piece coming back to Toronto, Lance, in the sign and trade. Considering some of the recent sign and trades for rights, it's about as good as you could possibly do, I would say, to get a roster player, and especially someone that could play in your top nine. I know he talked about in his chat with the media, Matt Sundin was one of his favorite players growing up, so he has a bit of a Leafs tie, if you will, here. But this is a guy that's won a cup, has been a solid playoff performer. How do you think he slots into Craig Berube's lineup?
I'll say very quickly that happiest guy in the room has to be Simon Benoit, who can now has someone to share all the French interviews with, especially when the Leafs play the Habs. But I think this guy can help. Obviously, the Leafs very slowly have brought in a lot of people with winning pedigree, and you certainly saw what Anthony Stolarz and Ekman Larsson and Stevie Lorentz did last year, and other people that they've brought in. I think he can add that. It'll be interesting to see how the dynamic with Tavares works, who winds up at center and all that kind of thing, and how Matias Maccelli works out as well. But I think it's if rather than get nothing, as Brad Treliving said, the Leafs walk away with something, and possibly a quite valuable piece down the road.
Yeah, third line center, I think, and it's interesting. Treliving mentioned yesterday that they could use him in the penalty kill and that sort of thing. He didn't do that a heck of a lot in Vegas, but they're going to have to replace Marner on the PK, obviously, all over the ice, of course, and maybe the plan is for Nick Roy to take some of those minutes. But yeah, it's the kudos to the Leafs, I suppose, for getting something. I hate to put it this way, but something warm in return for Marner, rather than watching him walk to free agency, or as is in most of the cases of these things, getting a late round draft pick or a second or third rounder. So they get a body they can use now. He'll step right into the lineup, of course, and like Lance says, the you hope the Stanley Cup pedigree pays off in the end. And overall, a bit quiet for Brad Treliving and adding Maccelli and Pizzetta as well, and we'll see where the rest of the summer goes here. But I just think as far as this Marner Roy thing goes, they're getting a player back, which is probably more than you could have asked for in most of these situations. And I think Lance would say too that the enthusiasm of Roy seemed legit yesterday when we talked to him via Zoom, and it seems like he'll be a good fit for the room, veteran, winning, and all this sort of thing. So we'll go from here, but you're never going to place Mitch Marner in those points. The team's aware of that, everyone's aware of that, and you do what you can to try to make up for it as best as possible.
Well, if there's one way the Maple Leafs are going to try to do it, at least in the aggregate here, Terry, it's Maccelli, who you mentioned, and this is a guy a few years ago was putting up some pretty big points as a member of Arizona and now I guess Utah. He is not Mitch Marner by any means, although if you watch some of the highlights, he definitely passes the puck around like the former number 16. At times, he's been in the top six for Utah. At times, he's been in the bottom six. How do you think that kind of stands right now when you look at where he'll fit in this lineup?
Well, last year's interesting, right? He was scratched 23 times down the stretch in the last couple of months. I think he played in 3 games, and they were consecutive. So, this is on a non-playoff team too, right? So clearly the Leafs are looking at this as a bit of a reclamation project. And the emphasizing of Treliving yesterday on looking for a top 6 forward now or improving that area, leads me to believe that, that maybe they think that Maccelli can be in there, but they're not, they can't count those, chickens before they're hatched in that regard, right? And, if it doesn't work, does then become a third line player? We'll have to see. Kind of like the same things that happened with Max Domi, who's been in and out of the top 6, for the past couple of years, but, playmaking and that sort of thing, but they have to get him back to where he was. Like, it's there, right? He was on the all-rookie team a couple of years ago. He followed that up with career high in points, and then last year, for whatever reason, it all just fell off for him, and he had just, I think, 18 points in 55 games. So the potential's there, but now it's on the Maple Leafs and the player to make this work.
I would only add quickly that people are desperate to move on from Marner and make yesterday a win for the Leafs. I don't know if this is the guy because not many people, Terry's clearly done his research there, but to a lot of other people outside of that rookie team nomination, he hasn't done a lot, and certainly that might be because he played in a different market and a non-playoff market. But people seem to be, just anointing this guy as being a big factor next year. We'll have to wait and see how that works out and what plans that Craig Berube have for him. So it's been a couple of down years for him, and it is a reclamation project, to use my friend's words, and we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Brad Treliving still has about $5 million in cap space as well, so you would think he's going to be using that, maybe some bargain bin hunting as we get closer to the start of training camp. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Lance Hornby and Terry Koshan, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.